stage is yours, Kaushik. So I'm your host. I'm your guest today. So at your liberty.
Sure, sir.
Okay.
So we'll start right at 8:02.
Perfect.
So without any further ado, I guess we can get started. So a very good evening to everyone present here. So I am Kaushik, your host for this session. We are gathered today on this virtual platform to welcome Mr. Anil Suneja, the Director of Finance in India and Southeast Asia region at Baxter International Inc., to our Excel family for a short interactive session. On behalf of the current XPGDM batch, I welcome you. We are glad to have you here today. Mr. Anil Suneja comes with over 16 years of experience. He has previously worked with Deloitte before joining Baxter International, where he has worked for nearly 15 years. In Baxter, he has donned various hats, including that of finance manager, finance controller of Philippines and Thailand region, finance head of India region, and currently he serves as the director of finance for Indian and Southeast Asian region. In his current role, Mr. Suneja is handling commercial, captive, and shared services, including IT and R&D, with more than $125 million overall business size across locations. He has been facilitated with Global Finance Leadership Award multiple times and various other awards at regional and country level. He is here today to deliver his insights on the key skill sets required for future finance leaders. Sir, thank you again for your time. The virtual podium is all yours now.
Thank you, Kaushik. Good evening, everyone. Good to see all of you. And I think it's a great platform. And thanks to the team XLRI for having me here. I think it's indeed my pleasure to be part of this forum and amongst the business leader for tomorrow. And I look forward for an engaging and learning session in the next 1 hour or so. Although we have a topic defined, but I think I would encourage all of you to make it more interactive. In hindsight, I used to commit a mistake when I was in academics, is not to ask questions. I hope you will not do the same mistake and make it more exchange of thoughts. I'm here to learn from all of you with the new learning which you're having on the ground. So looking forward for interaction here. Let me quickly share the screen and then we'll get going. If Kaushik, you can confirm me if you can see my screen.
Yes, sir, we can see your screen.
Perfect, yeah. All right, so quick disclaimer. The views which I'm going to express in the next half an hour or 1 hour or so are in my personal capacity and doesn't reflect the views of my organization. That's a disclaimer here. And yeah, just quickly to start with, I think Kaushik already explained this out, and I put this a very small summary of my professional journey, and I won't spend much time here. But what you can see on the screen is the overall experience, which I mean, I've been lucky enough to get diversified exposure across the different locations, working in 5 different countries. By profession, I'm a chartered accountant with experience in 5 different geographies, multiple experiences. And I think one thing which I have been, I think God has been kind to me is I have been stick to one organization for long, which has enabled me to learn various skill set. And those are some of the things which we are going to talk today, that how skill set is important than a role. So skill over role is kind of thing which I personally feel has worked well. And one of the reflection which I have when I look into my career journey so far is, and I will encourage all of you, is to experiment and learn new things and be out of your comfort zone. And this is what I've been doing. I'll not go in detail of what I have been doing in the past, but I think the key thing is, how do you ensure that you get the skill set and you are not stuck to only one skill set or only handful of skill set. That's very important for you to be a leader for today and a leader for tomorrow. I think the whole idea of today's session, and when Apurva and Kaushik was talking to me about what should we talk about here, and I was just thinking perhaps it makes sense for us to talk about something which is more futuristic in nature. Although what I'm going to talk is more relates to finance, but I think many of you as a leader for tomorrow can get essence from that how things are changing and how it's important to be proactive in many of these skill set, which is required for you to be a better leader for tomorrow. And specifically when it comes to finance, I have seen over the years that finance is evolving as a service. Gone are those days when finance is being perceived or is expected to only manage the financial statements and manage controls and compliances and be a fiduciary responsible person. Today is an era where the expectation from finance or a CFO is not just a chief financial officer, but the expectation from CFO is to be chief facilitating officer. And the overall role of finance is dramatically getting shifted. If I have to put this in one line, the role of finance is changing from being hindsight to insight to foresight. Let me explain what does that mean. The traditional role of finance used to revolve around postmortem of numbers. We get the outcome, we do month-end closing, we do reporting of what has happened in the past. It's a rear view which you get by being in hindsight. The role moved from hindsight to insight, which basically means deciding on business decision basis the information you have on hand. You talk to business, you get insight, you work on that. But significant shift which is happening, and I would say at least in last decade or so, is finance is no longer expected just to act as a rear view or just to look into the information you are getting from business stakeholders and act upon that, which is more about providing insight, but it is moving towards foresight. The role of finance is to predict the trend, understand the business, and find out what's happening in the business and be proactive in supporting the business, either through managing a risk or to be proactive to capture a market opportunity. That's where the role of finance is changing. So overall, I think the way things are evolving, it's no longer a traditional risk role. And I can tell you, I think this is something which many of you would have experienced. You come with some industry experience as well. The expectation is changing. The ever-changing business dynamic, the disruption which is coming through digital intervention, and the stakeholder expectation for value creation. I think that is the critical element here, that it is expected for finance to create value. And that requires a different skill set. Because if we are operating in the same way which our finance leaders of the past has been doing, we will not be relevant for the future. And since the stakeholders are changing, the future of finance will change, and the skill set which is required for a finance leader will definitely change to be relevant in future. One thing which I would like to mention here is, for a finance professional or even for any business leader, it's important to make sure how are you relevant to business. And if you are in a core business where you're driving the top line and you are managing a P&L, great. You are in a job where you have ability to move things. But if you are in a function, whether it's HR, finance, or any other function for that matter, the fact which makes you relevant in the job is how are you being an enabler to business. And I think that's where the mindset shift comes in. So in nutshell, and the relevance of finance is no longer being fiduciary responsible for tax, treasury, and compliances, internal control. It is definitely moving towards the fact that how do you become enabler for business? And that's what requires a different skill set and mindset. Okay. Kaushik, I'll be happy to take questions in between, but I'll leave it to you how the forum works in the past. We can take questions at the later as well. But yeah, I think happy to see if any comments comes in on the chat, and feel free to disturb me in between, Kaushik. I'll leave it to you. Okay.
Sure, sir. So we'll take the questions at the end together.
All right. All right. So what I've done is basically put together some list of the skill set, which I personally feel coming out from my experience, which needs to be there for a future finance leader. It is important for today's finance leader as well, but it will become all the more important for our future finance leader. I think the first and foremost is to harness the basics. The expectation from finance is to have minimum reporting, controls, accounting, taxation, treasury. These are the skill set which brings you on the table. What you as a leader earn seat on the table is because of these table stakes skill set. These are basic skill sets which needs to be there. But the way skill is going to evolve is not just about saying no to everything which business is asking for, because it is not accounting. It is having controls issue. It is having compliance issue. But how do you make sure you enable your business that, look, this is the reason why you are saying no for a particular transaction, because it impacts the controls, it impacts the compliances, it is going to create a risk for us in future. And it's important for a finance leader to make sure that while we are building on these basic skill set, how are we making it easy? And I often use a word with my team is, how are we driving speed and simplicity for operation without compromising controls? And that's what is the key. For a finance professional, or even for an HR professional, it's very easy to say no many a time, because look, it doesn't fit in our traditional way of operation, and this is going to create a risk. The expectation from the leader of today and the future is not just to highlight the risk, but also suggest how do you mitigate the risk. Very simple example. I mean, all of us are fan of cricket. If the captain of the team, Virat Kohli, is talking about that, okay, our scores are not good, he is not expecting his vice captain Rohit Sharma to come on the field and tell him that, okay, scores are bad. He can see it, right? He expects his vice captain to come on the field and say, look, our scores are not running good. This is what we should do to improve on. This is what I feel, how we can work on this. So finance has to operate as play to win, not play to play. And that's what is important when we are harnessing the basic skill set. How do we make it easy for our stakeholders and drive value for our business and for stakeholders? So that's the fundamental foundation skill set which has to be there, but in a different mindset. The second skill set which is important for us as a finance leader for tomorrow is agile. I'm not sure whether you are hearing this term for the first time, but if you're hearing this term for the first time, I'll strongly encourage all of you to Google this, learn more about agile, because this is the buzzword in the corporate world right now. And agile has been a phenomena which has been triggered by COVID, but it was there earlier as well. the philosophy of Agile is nothing. It talks about the mindset where you keep your customer in your mind. When you are doing anything, whether it's a process, whether it is a transaction, whether it is a development, how do you keep your customer at the core of the operations or a process which you're running? That's the Agile mindset. Agile mindset is being comfortable with unknown. Agile mindset is okay to not to know many things and learning and unlearning and relearning. That's what is Agile mindset. So during COVID specifically, the way things have moved, not only just from finance, but also from business leaders as well as function leads, it is expected that they keep their customer on the at a core of their operation and find out solution, find out the processes which may not be perfect, but it is evolving with the customer need. Traditional way of finance used to work. If you are making a process, we make the process with a consultant, one of the big fours, and we implement the business. That's not the way things happen today. And that's not the way things are going to happen in the future. Why? Because the expectation is while the process is being crafted or while you are designing a product for your customer, you will engage with them on a periodic manner during the implementation phase or during the design phase itself. So being customer focused, and customer here not only means anyone who buys your product. Customer here means for a function like finance, HR, supply chain, IT, customer is the internal stakeholder as well as external stakeholder. So keeping that mindset of Agile is a transformation for the next generation for finance leader. That breaks our monotony in the way we are operating in finance function. So that's the second skill set which is important for any leader to have. I think third thing which is there is to be a cross-functional expert. I mean, you may disagree with that as a finance professional, we are expected to know about finance, but finance is one work stream or one function which is the center of all operation. It's like a big sea or a river where all the small river comes and get merged. Finance is the only function where all the transaction gets stopped. I mean, imagine any transaction in the organization, the buck stops at finance because that's where we report our numbers. That's where we report our expenses. That's where our reports our performance and non-performance. So the uniqueness about finance function is we cross multiple businesses, we cross multiple functions and multiple operations. And the expectation from a finance leader is to blend with the business acumen with finance acumen. Today's finance leaders are not expected, and let me call this out very clearly. Finance leaders are not expected to call out the Ind AS or the US GAAP requirement. No, that's a technical skill set which brought you on the table. And these technical skill sets will keep on changing. The finance leaders are expected to how do you bring those statutory requirements and how does it support business in making sure that we sustain, grow, and expand. And that's where the finance leaders are expected to know the business very well. One of the study indicates that most of the CEOs who have been CFO in their previous roles are most successful because the finance vertical has, as a finance leader, they have developed a skill set of understanding the business. And that's where the leaders for finance are expected to solve operational challenge with cross-functional team, with sales, talking to customers, understanding what's the customer need is. If a process is being made at the corporate office without knowing how this is going to get translated on the ground for a sales team, whether it is enabling them or it is creating a hindrance for them to do their day-to-day operation, that process is not going to create any value addition for the organization. I think it's important for finance leaders to really understand market, understand customer, and make sure that what we do as a finance team or a finance leader is something which is being appreciated by the sales team or any other function for that matter. Many a time I hear this, and this is what my reflection has been talking to a lot of finance fraternity within my network. Finance is normally perceived as a roadblock because we create processes. We ask business not to do this, not to do that. But I think that's where the perception needs to change. And the leader of tomorrow, many of you need to make sure that when you are in the leadership position, you make your stakeholder understand that finance is not here to act as a roadblock in the flow of the river, but finance is here to make sure that we are the two ends of the flow of the river and provide direction to the flow of the river. I think that's what is important. And this has to be done through action, where you connect to the downward most bottom part of your organization and make them understand that here, finance is here to support and listen. Voice of customer, this is something which we have practiced a lot. Voice of customer or your key stakeholder is a great tool for finance professionals or finance leaders to learn more about business and how things are happening on the ground. Gone are those days when finance is just asked to highlight who is accountable for this. Finance is expected here to drive accountability. And that's what is the key skill set which finance leader need to have. The fourth skill set which is there, and this is something you might have heard earlier as well. This is what is creating disruption in the finance field, and I'm sure it is creating disruption in many other, I would say, functions or business for that matter. The way businesses are conducted now vis-a-vis 3 years back before COVID is a dramatic shift. I mean, we are working in an era where omni-channel is an approach instead of doing a traditional way of doing business. We're working in an era where working from home is a reality. It's going to stay here for longer than anyone could expect. It is an era where digital disruption is at a pace which nobody imagined 3 years back. All these terminologies, whether it is RPA, blockchain, big data analytical, predictive analyticals, these are something which is a reality today. And for a future leader of finance, you need to know all this skill set. This is what I personally feel I want to learn more, and I've been trying my best to do that, because these skill sets are not taught in any of these academic sessions. And I highly encourage all of you guys to pick up some topic or the other. There's a good amount of data which is available, or good amount of information being available on various web portals to learn something about this. Why it is important? If we don't learn this now, we will not be doing it proactively, and it will be more reactive. The jobs which is available today are very soon going to be redundant in future, because those are repetitive work which can be done by an RPA. It can be done by a Tableau. It can be done by a blockchain technology. So it's important for all of us to understand that being proactive and learning this skill set is going to make us relevant in the field of finance, because the digital disruption is the biggest disruption which is happening today. And knowing this is and following or learning this skill set beforehand is going to make you out of the curve amongst your competitions in the market, for that matter. So being part of the digital fluency drive is to bring digital to life is a must-to-have skill for future of finance. This is not, and I would say among all the skill set, this is the one which is difficult to have, because we don't know all this stuff. I mean, all of us would be learning these terminologies. Maybe new to many of us, at least to me, but yeah, this is a critical skill set to have. And the last but not the least, I think this is something which has been prevalent as a skill set for finance professionals. But yeah, last few years has really made sure that finance, as a finance leader, we are not just expected to being collaborative to business, being a business partner, uh, being economic advisor to our business stakeholders, but it is expected, and the skill set which is required is to drive the change, being proactive in driving the change in the middle of dynamic operating environment. Today we have a situation where we are predicting how our business model is going to operate. Business model keeps on changing with the COVID situation. This is what I've been seeing, and when I look into different geographies, every geography operates differently. Every state in India operates differently when it comes to changing operating environment. Election in one state create impacts of funding in one state from a healthcare perspective, and vice versa. So how finance becomes more enabler for being adaptive to these change is through leading through change. And all the more reason with this digital disruption, things are changing. Our customers' demands are changing, and the expectation from finance professional is also changing. And it's important for us to not to resist the change, but to find out that, okay, how can we learn this skill set of embracing the change? Change is going to happen, which is for sure. One thing which is inevitable, or one thing which is constant, is a change. But this is a reality of today, and this is going to be reality for tomorrow. Things change very dramatically and very fast. But for us to be a better leader for today and tomorrow, it's important that we learn how to embrace the change and understand the skill set which is required to embrace the change. So to me, these are the 5 skill sets which I personally feel is important for a future finance leader, and I'll sum it up in exactly the order which we talked about. I think harnessing the basic is important, where stay core to your foundation. If your foundation is not strong as a finance professional, you will not be able to add value to business, because that's the core which is expected from you. Cross-functional expert is making sure that you blend the finance acumen with business acumen and enable business to provide direction. Agile performer, which revolves around customer centricity, which revolves around driving speed and simplicity in operation without impacting controls. And digital is the core, which is happening as we speak now. Where all the technologies coming in, a lot of our operations are getting changed. Being proactive in learning those skill sets is important. Last but not the least is our change agent, which I just talked about. Embracing the change, learning the skill set of how to embrace the change is a must-to-have skill set, because things are dynamic and it will not remain as is the way it has been in the past. So with that, Kaushik, I'll take a pause here, and I think, I think I'm right at the time. So maybe let's open the lines for any questions.
Sure, sir. Thank you, sir. So I request people who have questions, please raise their hand. Yeah, Madhumita, please go with your question.
Thank you, sir, for the wonderful and enriching session. My question to you would be that what would be the biggest hurdle to the adoption of AI in financial services currently this year and beyond that?
Great question, Madhumita. I think the biggest concern which is there is the fact that there is a resistance to change. As a human being, if we are in our comfort zone, we know what we have been doing is working well for us. Why do I need to learn a new skill set? Today, this happens, and this is not just a challenge which I face as a CFO. I see a lot of my fellow CFOs face this challenge where we are trying to give that skill set to our teams, but they are not learning that skill set, because either they feel that this is something which is not relevant to them, or they feel that learning this skill set is going to make them redundant. So the biggest fear, what I have experienced, Madhumita, is the fact that there is resistance to change, and not everyone is comfortable with learning new stuff.
Thank you.
Niharika, please go ahead.
Yes, sir. So thank you for the session, and it was really wonderful knowing all about the developments that are happening in the finance sector. So you talked about finance as a service and the various skill sets that are required and are needed to be developed for having that uh, developing that finance skill set. So my question would be, what are the challenges that the finance professionals are now facing while developing an agile mindset, and how are they tackling those challenges?
I think the biggest thing which I would say when it comes to agile is the traditional way we have been hardwired. And whether we come from a background of a chartered accountant, whether we come from a background of MBA, we have been hardwired that this is what the needs of the business are. But agile methodology is something which has not been taught to us in our academics, and I'm not sure whether it's being taught in XLRI. But that's one challenge which is there, that not everyone understands that there is a fine balance which can be achieved in discharging the responsibility of a finance professional, whether you are in tax, treasury controls, or FP&A or reporting. There's a fine balance which you can achieve in doing what you're expected to do, but yet being customer centric. I think keeping the business as a customer for you is a mindset, which is difficult to have that, because we are, and this is what I mean, I have experienced, we are hardwired that way, that look, finance is here to make sure that there is zero non-compliance which happens. We don't take the risk. But the reality of today is there is risk in everything we do. How do we mitigate that risk with effective control and yet support business in achieving their result? That's the balance to be achieved. So to me, it's the hardwire in the mind, which is our biggest roadblock when it comes to agile or when it's come to technology adoption for that matter. I hope that answers your question, Niharika.
Yes, thank you.
Mona Lisa, please go ahead with your question.
Thank you for the session, sir. My question would be that you spoke about digital in finance. So there has been a lot of latest developments in terms of technology in finance. So how would you, suggest non-technical people or people who do not really come from that domain? How do you see them, like, as a person who is not from a technical background? How would you suggest that I go about it? Learn these technologies, or at least learn something about it so that I can keep myself updated with the times.
Good question, Mona Lisa. I think this is a dilemma which I personally has faced as well, and many of my team member faces. We come from a typical educational background of finance, accounting, debits, and credits, and those kind of stuff, and we are not an IT expert. This is a myth. As a finance professional, you don't have to become an IT expert to learn the technology or learn the digital aspect of it. What you need to know is have basic understanding how these technologies work. Today, I can go to various portals, whether it's Upgrad or Udemy. I can do a simple course on Tableau. I don't need a degree for that matter to really learn about this. Today, I can go to Google and learn a coding language. Nothing stops me. I can do that in 2 days, right? So it's all about knowing something that this is the need of the hour and then adapting to it. You don't need to be expert. Nobody's asking you to change your domain. But having that mindset that, look, I can present the reports in Excel or PowerPoint presentation. That's the way it has been happening in the past. How can we make it more interactive Tableau? How can I give that insight into business, which will enable decision making for them? How can I give the information which leads to action, not just a scoreboard? So traditionally, again, it might be sounding repetitive. Finance has been always a scoreboard. Look, this is what is the result. Nobody expects us to tell us the result. The expectation is when you are telling the results, say what is the solution to bring things back on track. And that's where the digital intervention comes in. So to your point, Mona Lisa, I think the fact that this is the expectation is not to become an IT expert, it's to know the basic requirement. And Tableau is very basic. I mean, anyone can learn Tableau very, very easy. I mean, you have a lot of resources available free of cost on various portals which can enable you for that. So yeah, don't be afraid to learn something new. It will not make you an IT expert. Nobody expects you to be an IT expert in this field.
Thank you, sir.
Jagan, please go ahead with your question.
Hello, and Anil, I was going through your profile, LinkedIn profile, okay, and I was seeing a point saying that there were 7 different roles that you have been into 5 different countries that includes Thailand, Philippines, Singapore, and USA. Okay, so you would have been into different, like you have to be adapted to different policies. You have to keep on improving your skills. Okay, keep on updating your knowledge on the same. So, what could be your one advice that you could tell us about how to cope up with this adaptability?
Good question, Jagan. And this is something which is the core of my learning. I think the thing which I would say is being open to be outside of your comfort zone. That's important. Being not to be afraid of something which you don't know. I think that's the key thing here, which makes you more adaptive. I'll tell you one story here. This is something which some of you might laugh. So when I was supposed to go to US for my assignment, I was being asked to drive on day 1 for going to office. And I was given a car because it's in India, you drive on the left-hand side, and in US, you drive on the right-hand side. And I was given it on day 1. And it was almost 13 years back. I was young at that time, and I was thinking throughout my flight that that's the biggest challenge which I have, because I can drive in India, but US is opposite side driving. And there was no GPR, there was no, you Google Map at that point of time. You used to have a GPRS device, and I was not having GPRS device of the day. And I took the Google Map printout. And what I did is my flight landed on Saturday morning, and Saturday I just went to office. It was an expressway where you have a minimum speed. And I was so afraid about the fact that, okay, if something happens to me, how will my body come back to India? That was the height of being terror. And it took me 1.5 hours to reach to office, knowing some of the rules and how this needs to be done. I went there again on Sunday, so that on Monday I reached there in 45 minutes. Now, it was kind of like little proactive at that time, but when I see in hindsight today, that was one of the difficult things which was there, to be adaptive and somehow being more open to your being open and being solution oriented rather than talking about problem. You will encounter problem when you move to different locations. You will encounter challenges when you move in different organizations. But important is what's in your sphere of control, not just to talk about what's in sphere of concern, right? I mean, there is COVID outside, that's in sphere of concern for me, but I can protect myself by wearing mask and doing basic hygiene. That's in sphere of control, right? So the biggest thing which I would advise, Jagan, is when you have one, being open to change, second, being okay to be outside of your comfort zone, third, having learning agility, fourth, being finding solution out of the problem. I think these are 4 things which I would say makes a difference for you when you are moving across the locations or organization. Nothing is going to be perfect. You will be in an organization where culture may be not to your expectation. Your team may not be to your expectation. But how do you make a difference? That makes you a leader.
Yes, and the answer helps me.
Yoshita, please go ahead with your question.
Yeah. Hello, sir. Thank you for this engaging session. So, sir, like you mentioned that we have technologies that are shaping the future of finance, be it blockchain or AI ML. So we see a lot of automation and robotics taking shape in the finance sector as well. And most of the transactional jobs are now done through automation. So what strategies or suggestions would you give to a budding financial professional, like for upskilling himself?
I think it's important to understand the technology, the way it's shaping up today. Understanding that RPAs are here to take over many of the stuff which is repetitive in nature. I think that's one important element to it. Second is to understand that, look, technology can do repetitive stuff, but technology cannot provide the insights or foresight which humans can provide. And harnessing yourself with that skill set is important. There will be few jobs which is available in market today will not be there in tomorrow, in future. That's a given thing. But knowing that how that technology work and how do you manage that technology? It's not about just resisting that this technology is going to take over jobs. So yeah, I mean, but being proactive in making sure that you learn that technology by yourself so that you become a professional who can manage things on the ground is important. That would be my advice to this. But yeah, things are changing very rapidly. And I was talking to somebody in US very recently, and the way big data analytics is going on, I mean, predictive analysis is something which is very interesting. And I was amazed to see that we have tools and technology nowadays which can predict that how the behavior of a sales team member is going to be for a T&E claim basis as past trend. It's just like when you talk to Vodafone or Airtel, they know your credit history and whether you are a customer who pays on time or not. Those technologies are coming into business operations as well. So knowing about them, learning about them, being proactive, I think that's the way forward to be relevant in the market. That's the way I would put this. Yeah.
Thank you, sir.
Aditya, you can go ahead with your question.
Very good evening, sir. So I just wanted to ask you, sir, so we all are here talking about finance and tech coming together and all. But we see a lot of challenges are coming regarding data privacy, data breach, and moreover, these concerns are increasing. So how can we better handle all these kind of situations?
So I think when it comes to data, Aditya, the fact that data privacy is applicable to your customers, right? As an organization, data privacy rules has to be really kept into mind when it comes to the end customer. But when it comes to employee, right? I mean, if you are understanding the payment or the behavior pattern of an employee, that how his sales have been in the past and how it's going to happen in future, whether the employee adherence level is high in the past and it's happening for future, to me, that's not about data breach or data privacy for that matter, because you're not dealing with personal data. Nobody is asking in the organization to share those personal details. But yeah, when it comes to data privacy for our customers, for sure, the regulation is going to be getting stricter. It's going to be more about focus towards protecting the rights of the citizens, which is there. But yeah, to me, that's not going to be a showstopper for organization not to adopt technology. I can give you one example that today we have devices, and I come from a healthcare background. So we have a machine, which is obviously at this point of time is not there in India, but we have machine in other countries, wherein the nephrologist, and we deal in kidney products, kidney machines or peritoneal dialysis, a patient sitting at home can do his peritoneal dialysis and the data will go to doctor. He doesn't have to travel to doctor. I think that's where the data privacy is going to come, because that tracks the movement and those kind of stuff. But to me, I think we will be finding out solutions to these till the time the things are done for the right intent. I think that's important to highlight here. There will not be a disruption to business for that matter. That's my experience there.
Thank you.
Sir, I have a question from my end actually. So, like with many of the companies are willing to take up the decentralized currency as a course of payment. For example, a few years back, Tesla started accepting Bitcoins. So, do you see in the healthcare sector it coming up in a more prominent way in the coming years, or like what exactly is the current scenario now in regards to?
Well, there's a long way to go for this, Kaushik. I mean, I don't see that as a CFO. If somebody asks me that, okay, yeah, we are going to move towards this direction, my answer is absolutely no, because I mean, you don't know how this is going to operate, and you know, it's going to take at least a decade or so. May not be, I mean, if not more, to reach to that stage. I don't see that something which is really coming up that fast, because you know, you have to have in a currency which is marketable, which has a sustenance, an underlying derivative where value gets generated. In all these cryptos and those kind of stuff, it is really difficult to get those basics being there. So I have not heard about this, and I don't see a trend coming very soon in healthcare industry, or for that matter in any other industry. Yeah, I think there is some time to go for that.
Do we have any other questions? Okay, Aditya. Yeah, go ahead, Aditya.
I had another question. So I wanted to know, in this budget, we spoke about digital currency also. And I wanted to understand how is this going to shape the future?
I think the good thing which the government has done, and I'm not a tax expert, Aditya, but I'll share my reflection on what I feel. The good thing government has done is to bring a regulation rather than saying big no to all these digital currencies. The regulation has its own reaction from various stakeholders, but at least government is moving towards a direction that being open to change. They have brought regulation, not just saying complete no to it, which is a fairly okay step to take. It's about understanding how the various other countries are going to react to it. The fact that government has brought taxation to all these digital assets, digital currencies, indicates their intent is not to completely ban it, but manage it well within the regulation and those stuff. But yeah, I mean, things are definitely going to get changed, and I mean, one global event, a war in one particular country can trigger a lot of things to go back to the old way, and you never know how things move on. So these are kind of wait and watch thing, how government reacts to such kind of thing. But I think I kind of appreciate the move taken by government by not completely banning it, but at least bringing it into regulation for that matter.
Nikita, please go.
Yes, thank you, sir, for the session. So, sir, I saw that you said about 5 skill sets. So, with these skill sets, there'll be many new horizons which will be there as a finance leader to explore. So, what are some of the big areas that you see in the future that will come up for a finance leader, and how digital transformation will matter in future?
Great question, Nikita. I think the way this is coming up is having that finance blend of finance acumen, business acumen, and digital acumen is a great skill set to drive change in the organization. I think the future I see is going to come up is there are roles which is going to come up as change agent. There are roles which is going to come as digital, I would say, digital marketeers, or I would say for that matter, driving transformation or role which revolves around transformation. There will be plenty of opportunities which is going to come up for the right skill set in the market. But yeah, again, it depends on what's the need of the organization. And look, there are big corporates who have started their digital journey in before COVID. There are corporates who have accelerated their digital journey during COVID. But there are many organizations who is yet to even think about digital because they feel that this is something which is good to have, not must to have. And that's where a finance professional who knows that the digital acumen as a digital skill set is going to be marketable in very much in the market, because that's where these relatively smaller organizations, or I would say like mid-size organizations, will be looking to drive that change. And they would need somebody who knows how business gets done, at the same time how finance operation gets done, and how digital change management happens. So I see plenty of opportunities coming there, provided we adopt the right skill set for that. I must say, Nikita, I think just one thought which comes to my mind to add there is the generation which we are operating right now, and the way the workforce is changing. And I'll take a couple of minutes to share my reflection on that. So historically, what I've seen is the overall workforce have actually moved into different, I would say, era. We used to have our grandparents who used to work during Industrial Revolution. They used to do a job for survival. There was limited opportunities which was there. There was, you have era when the boss is always right and those kind of stuff. Like typical our grandfathers or grandmothers approach. And then you have seen the industrial information revolution, where this big IT companies, brands started coming in, and there, I mean, comes our parents. They didn't work for survival because their parent took care of it, and they actually work for standard of living. They had good enough salary to afford homes, and they have options. So their focus was on better quality of workplace and those kind of things. And then comes the social revolution, which is, I think somewhere I would say when I started the professional career from 2005, 2008, when okay, information revolution died and anyone can learn anything. Digital stuff is so much easily available, and there is no longer a hidden knowledge which is there. They focused on quality of life. So you have a group of people who work for survival, then it moves to standard of living, and then you come with workforce, which is talking about quality of workplace. But post-COVID, what is important, and this is what has been a topic in one of the forums in finance fraternity as well, is the workforce of today, I mean, including all of us, is looking for that how organization is investing in those skill set, which is not only just making you efficient in your current job, what you do, but also what is a new skill set which you're learning. So you will see there are many organizations who is focusing about how do we create that digital acumen, the cognitive skills, or agile mindset. These are a handful of these examples where organization is investing time and resources. So the point which I'm trying to say here is the nature of workforce is changing. Organizations are changing as well, and they want to focus more on the skill set, because that's what is going to retain. Today, if you have to retain an employee, why would I stick to an organization? Why would you stick to the organization? Is other than the basic standard of the organization, that what value they bring it for you and what you bring it for them, is how much investment organization is doing on you. And those are some of the things which organizations are thinking, I mean, very seriously at this point of time. So I think those are some of other reflection which perhaps can correlate here.
Thank you, sir. So I believe we are done with the questions, sir. So before we officially conclude the session, I would like to give a vote of thanks. So shall we go ahead, sir?
Yeah, I'm good with that.
Sure, sir. So so I hope everyone thoroughly enjoyed this enriching session. It's my privilege to give this vote of thanks to Mr. Anil. First, I want to thank you, sir, on behalf of the entire cohort of XLRA for taking out time from your hectic schedule to join us and deliver this talk. Sir, I thoroughly enjoyed this this talk about the vast experience and anecdotes you had shared with us today. Your thoughts on leadership from a finance perspective, wherein we have to go back to the basics, adapt an agile mindset, the necessity of being a cross-functional expert, and also the necessity to embrace the digital mindset will be very valuable to our learning journey. Thank you once again, sir. It's been an absolute honor to host you. I wish you a great evening.
Thanks, Kaushik, for having me here. I think I thank all of you for sharing some of the questions and provoking some of my thoughts. And I think these are something which I personally feel is going to be relevant. But I really enjoyed this session, and hopefully you got something out of it. And I wish all of you all the best in whatever endeavor you're doing. And I think it's a great platform, Kaushal, which XRI is driving to bring theory into practice, which I call TIP in a short form. But yeah, I mean, connecting to what's happening on the ground and theory is important. So I'll encourage all of you to explore more about this. There's the internet has tons of information about the skill set which should be there. And yeah, I think embrace the change. That's my message to all of you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, everyone. Have a good night.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Yes, sir.